Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Negotiations, written by bellumaster. Floor 202 was one of the least forgiving floors of the Majesty. Things happened there that wouldn't happen anywhere else for several reasons. Hoden was one of those reasons. He was on the verge of eliminating one of the others. One of the more influential gang kings in the megacity, Hoden was the leader of a hive subset. His species developed as a massive planetary group under a single member's influence, which had lasted just fine, until they left the planet. Unable to exercise authority across the voids, the ruler had splintered off another, and when that ruler had subjugated the world, it had splintered off another, and so on, and so on. Now their race, once found in glorious unison, was splintered 1,000 times over, with each subset developing differently across the stars, to the point that at times they could barely even be recognized as the same kind. It was a problem Hoden planned to solve. He currently ruled part of this floor. He needed the rest of it. Then the megacity, and the rest of them, then the planet. Once comfortably pulling the strings of his people at all levels of society, he could declare war on nearby splinter races of the hive and begin wiping the unworthy from the stars until it was just the original and him. Then they would see who was more powerful. Before all that could occur, though, Hodar needed to sort out some problems with one of the other gang kings, a human with an annoying tendency to get in the way of his expansions. They both stood in a fairly well-decorated room by hive standards. There was a table and chairs and a faux window portal off to the side. Lining two opposite sides of the room were several of his people and several of the humans' people. Yet it was not a peaceful discussion, and though he did not care overmuch for the outcome, he mostly expected it to end in bloodshed. The human spoke, writhing, colorful tattoos rippling about his body as it stretched it. "You broke our agreement, Hoden. And I don't care for the liars. We agreed that you would leave the residential district to me. But what did I find?" The human flicked its wrist, and two of the lackeys dragged in one of Hoden's extensions. He contemplated the motion it had made, a primitive mode of communication compared to his wide-reaching soul-speak. A pity the humans weren't susceptible to it. They seemed at least a little useful. The human gestured to the extension of Hoden on the ground. "The nice thing about dealing with you is that I know it's not just one of your boys doing what they think might help. It is you, only you, and all you that made this poor sucker break in and start looting on my turf." The human reached out a hand towards its people. A gun was placed into the appendage, which was then placed against the head of Hoden's extension. The gun bucked in the human's hand, and Hoden felt it twinge as the hive member's life was snuffed out. It didn't hurt overmuch, comparable to having a hair plucked out, but it was offensive in its violation of his person. Hoden readied his people to end the humans. The humans' people all raised their weapons as well, but they were all trained on him. Hoden paused, knowing that he could not definitively kill them all without a single shot reaching him. It was too great of a risk. He spoke. "You've made your point, Kaida. I was remiss, sir, but you'll be required to compensate for that life you took." "Of course, as soon as you compensate for the damages done to my district." Hoden twitched at the grating presumption of the human. He calmed his people and spoke again. "Surely it wasn't that much damage." "It killed 8 people, looted 3 stores, and broke the pressure hatches on 15 establishments. Or should I say, you did." Hoden grew thoroughly annoyed. "I instructed it to test your boundaries, as you do my territories every day, so what if a few lives were lost? They're simply resources." The human stared at him for a moment, then turned to the humans behind him. "Leave!" The human strode out without a word, leaving Kaida in the room with Hoden and some 8 of his extensions. He could barely believe the human's foolishness. The moment the portal closed, he brought his people's weapons to bear on the human. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," Kaida said, shaking the cell of the gun in its hand. "If you kill me, my second-in-command has orders to take control of your territory after this room blows up." The human held up a hand. Some device flickered with a light against its wrist. "You kill me, you die." Hodin glowered. "Such an extreme measure, Kyler. Just allow me free movement through your territory, and we'll have no more problems. I don't care about these squabbles. There are more important things to attend to." The human nodded. Of course. But you see, when one of your extensions kills 8 people under my protection, they look to me, wondering why I didn't protect them." Odin gestured to the body on the ground beside him. "They are resources, Kaida." The human slammed down a fist. "Maybe to you they are, Odin, but not to me." The human jabbed a finger towards him. "If this happens again, you're through." Odin had had enough of the human's demanding attitude. He was beholden to none. He roared, "It will happen again, human. I have no time for your grievances or your complaints. The cogs may grind to nubs and be replaced, but the machine will not cease. You have settled your own fate. I declare war upon you." The human moved faster than he could track, crossing the room before he could bring his people's weapons to bear. He thought it would try to go for his guards, which would allow him to escape with those remaining. But instead, it came for him. He tried to fend it off, but the human caught him in the neck and placed his body between it and the guards. "You filthy!" The human's gun went to his head, and Odin immediately became still. He couldn't afford to die here. Now, the human hissed into his ear. "If you declare war on me, Odin, I will kill you here and now." "But you'll die." "It's a price I'm willing to pay. Retract what you said and keep your damned feelers out of my territory." Odin started to move his people around them, looking for an opening. The human reacted immediately, holding him tight by the neck while aiming at the closest guard. "Odin, you need to understand something." The gun bucked and the guard went down. Odin didn't have a clear shot at the human. He couldn't make the command. "I will end you. I'll tear down everything you've built, all your relays, and destroy your factories." The gun bucked again, and another of his guards went down. Odin hated seeing resources wasted so ruthlessly. "I will grind what you have built into ash and reduce it to carbon." The gun bucked again, then again. Odin began to feel less confident. "I will remove all trace of you from the city and murder anyone who brings you up. I will personally destroy your growing vats and end this line of the Legion." Again. Odin only had a single guard left. He still had a chance. The gun bucked one final time, then was placed against his head. He felt a distinct dread and powerlessness that he'd never felt before. "I will round up every one of your extensions and march them by you, one by one, and put a bullet through their heads just to watch your face as I do it." Odin squirmed, and a whimper escaped. The human was insane. It only held him tighter, grinding the hot metal of the weapon into his head. "I will build an isolation box and keep you in it for the rest of your life, until I find another leader of your kind. Then I'll give you to them, to be used as an extension." He jolted. No, anything but that." The human threw him to the ground and gestured at the bodies of his guards. "Then keep the hell away from my territory and honor our agreement. Everything here was recorded, so if you and your extension so much as set foot in my districts without my leave," the human gestured the gun to him, "I will do everything I said, and worse." Odin stared blankly at the bodies of his guards. They'd been his most capable extensions. The human turned to leave. "Those were payment for the property damage. You still owe me for the 8 people you killed." Odin staggered to his feet. Maybe he should try subjugating other floors first. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Bushmaster 177, Henry the Red, Caspar Arnholtz, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Elijah Silvercross, Dragzoon WRE, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.